So this is not really day 3. This is an off day. This is a Friday. Last night it was the second day of class. Now, some of the things I was excited about was Notebook LM's ability to sort of translate and give students maybe a message in their language, because again, my class says level 2, but there are certain students who are in there who are at a very beginning level, and so maybe to grasp some of the concepts, it was very, very good to use the Notebook LM. So let me get there. And I think we have a couple of notebooks here, and I should probably clean this up. So I have a notebook called American English Phonemes Explained. We'll click on that. And as you can see, I copy and pasted something that I found about phonemes. And then over in this side, this was explained. And then I told my students to type something like explícalo, because I have mainly Spanish speakers. So explícalo en español. You don't have to have all the spelling correct. They know what you're talking about. And so right here it says in Spanish, right? The examples, an explanation. So explícalo en español just means explained in Spanish. And here is maybe the Spanish version of what I gave them in class in English. A lot of that is kind of, so over here on this side we have short vowel sounds, long vowel sounds, and over here they explain that, but on this side it's not highlighted, but it is something that they need to be aware of. So it was cool that they, bolded the core concepts here, or the main idea, main vocabulary. So now they know that there's short vowels, long vowels if they go and see this. Now, of course, there's a danger, because will they really be able to come over here and make the one-to-one? I don't know. But I think it's important for them to understand certain concepts like phonemes and how language works, so they can understand why making sounds are so important. I think a lot of times as educators, we're kind of like, hey, obviously sounds are important, and obviously these phonemes communicate a message, but most people don't think like that, right? And especially if you're not your language. Gave them the example of French, where they have like arm in arm. In French is bras dessus et bras dessous, bras dessus, bras dessous. And in English we don't know the difference between su and su. We don't hear it. And again, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. I don't hear that sound. I know there's a difference. Just kind of like in Portuguese, where they talk about grandparents and avô and avô. One is grandmother, the other is grandfather. But it's not a sound that is easily recognized in American English. So I really had to train my listening, and I'm not there yet, to distinguish between avô, 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 avô. One's a longer O when they hold it, and how long we hold something, all that is crucial. And trying to get people to understand that, especially if they don't have the language, it's kind of difficult. So I really liked the way that LM Notebook came and gave a summary in their own language so that they can understand the concepts later, especially important concepts like this. But after I left there, I was sort of excited, and I thought there was somewhere here where we could create flashcards, so to speak, phoneme flashcards. Maybe something that has like sound with the, symbol. I'm sure that's the thing, right? We learn languages, and I am just now getting back into learning language. My full-time job, of course, is software design. So I'll jump into a little bit more. Like maybe if we go online right now, we can see something like phoneme flashcards, and of course it's a thing, right? Duh. So there will be something like phoneme flashcards, and they'll have a list of words that contain that sound, and that might be a very fun exercise that my students can kind of go over, right? So I want to be able to create an assignment, recognize the phoneme or listen, and which phoneme do you think you hear, sort of kind of like, I guess, Duolingo. I don't know if they necessarily break down the phonemes that small, but I think that would be a fun game. So this is where we want to get into vibe coding, right? So I have my project here of, I really like the way ChatGPT now has like specific projects you can do. And I have this ESL 920 class kind of helping me to create lessons, right? So for example, you can see here that I decided I needed some vocabulary. I wanted to talk about creating accounts, and I wanted to be able to help students with that. And again, I have very low students, and so one of these things was, okay, let's use Notebook LM, let's translate having to do that. Last night we talked about the phonemes, the 44 phonemes in American English. Of course, everything's up for debate, but around 40-ish phonemes in English. And now I thought it would be neat to kind of make a flashcard game, right? So let's go over here to ESL 920 and let's create, I guess, can we create a new one? A new chat? Sure. Let's call it phoneme flashcard game for students. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. This is kind of where I ask him a question. So, how should I go about creating a phoneme flashcard game in? I think we want to host it on, like, again. So I have some certain parameters I have to work within. Okay, I'm going to be working about 4 hours a week because I have 4 hours of class. So I think your out of class time should match your class time, and hopefully your out of class time starts to be half of what you spend in class. So right now I spend 4 hours in class. I'm going to spend 4 hours out of class per week trying to lesson plan around this. So I'm trying to create very practical projects, and I think as far as teaching and being a teacher is concerned, I've kind of zeroed in on Google App Script. It's a easy way to have hosting of certain files, and I might come into a wall right there because certain static files might be hard to get in there. But as far as hosting HTML and JavaScript files, super easy. They give you a server to work with. Most teachers like to persist using, the spreadsheet, the Google spreadsheet. So I'm working within those parameters for the first couple of projects just to see how practical it is to do something like that. So I'm going to put it in here for chat, those parameters. Always work within these parameters. And hopefully I could type something up and get something within, I don't know, again, I have 4 hours. Let's try to get something like this within 4 hours for this project. Might not work, but let's see. So how should I go about creating a flashcard game and a user game hosted on Google Apps Script? Google Apps Script platform. It's not a platform. I don't know what it is. Google Apps Script platform. So that so that's Script platform and tracks users activity backed by some spreadsheet, right? Spreadsheet. So how should I go about creating a phoneme flashcard game hosted on Google Apps Script platform and tracks users activities backed by a spreadsheet? Not a lot of information, but let's see what it does with it. I mean, it already has a whole host of things that it knows I'm trying to accomplish. So this is very interesting. We're going to have to define deck of cards, events, and serves the web app, right? Reads the deck sheets to build a deck, right? Appends rows and events. Of course, the front end is Bootstrap 5 and Font Awesome. And we're going to be using Google Apps Script's little communication device. So they're saying that you should create a phonemes sheet, which is a pretty good idea. So have a Google spreadsheet. We're gonna need something like audio files, right? Keep track of audio URLs, empty if you don't have them yet. And if you do host small MP3s in Drive, set it to anyone with the link can use it. Alright, so we're going to have to use Google Drive for a couple of things. Create a new app script project bound to your sheet. Interesting. Don't know that I like the way it's going about it. My idea is, wow, this is a lot of information. Liked where you were going there, so liked how you suggested having decks. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah. So I do like the idea of decks. Don't understand necessarily what he means and how would the cards look. So think of decks as small focused practice sets you can mix and match by scale, short vowels, long vowels, contrast. Okay. Difficulty or even L1 for Spanish speakers. Here's a clean way to model it. Deck, anonymity, 2-sheet model. Use 2 tabs in your Google Sheets. Deck index. So I have a deck, and then you would have English short vowel sounds, and then you might have all the long vowel sounds. Many pairs, ship versus sheep. Interesting. So I didn't even think about the deck here. Maybe I would need to model the deck on my own because they're going over some really advanced stuff. Wasn't even thinking about how to do that. Ship versus sheep. Minimal pairs, vowels, contrast, Spanish. They know I am dealing with Spanish speakers, so that's why they're suggesting this. Why this lets the UI list decks dynamically and lets you filter by tags. Cool, e.g. show only Spanish L1 deck or only A1 deck. Okay. And then choices let you go beyond 2 buttons later without changing schema. For audio mode, leave prompt phoneme blank and supply audio URL. Prompt format in deck index tells the client how to render text prompts versus audio prompts. What decks should you start with? Yeah, short vowels and long vowels are perfect anchor decks. Then add targeted contrast decks. Since most of your students are Spanish speaker, prioritize these. Great. Front-end tweaks, dynamic deck list plus filters, a drop-down populated deck index. Okay, and then we got some code here. Notice that they're using just regular JavaScript code for the back end here and the app scripts. The front end Okay, so now we have I was not expecting, this is a lot of information. So I'm gonna have to go munch through this information. I'm gonna have to put this on hold right now. I'll munch through the information. Right now it's about 1:46. I have to pick up my daughter. So we're going to press pause. We're going to keep the track. It's been about 18 minutes. So I'm going to press pause over here on the 18 minutes and then come back. Wow, just doing that much, and that was already 18 minutes. That's not a very good use of my time. I still have to go and understand the code and read through all the instructions. Okay, but after I'm done, I'll have a lesson, or I'll have an activity that can be used for many lessons to come. So this is didn't think about that. So if you're going to be coding, and I guess if you do teaching at all, this is to be expected. I mean, really, how many teachers don't plan during the summer? So this is sort of kind of like my summer planning. So here's something that's not realistic. 4 hours a week in the beginning of this semester, not realistic. So we're going to have to do many hours a week. I'll come back to it and we'll talk about how long these things are going to start. Picking up my daughter before she has to take an Uber. Anyway. So, realistically speaking, 4 hours is not going to be enough. I just burned through 20 hours, 20 minutes, and that's, another 40 minutes, and I will probably still be trying to understand the code. Even when I get into VS Code and I have code completion, even if I just copy and paste, which is going to be the first thing I do, walk you through that, I can still see this going on for like 3 hours. So, realistically speaking, the hours you spend during the summer to prepare is necessary. The good thing here is I will have a tool that can be used in many parts of the lesson. So it's a tool that I'm building and not necessarily a lesson. So let's see how quickly I can make this tool. Probably not going to finish it in a day, realistically speaking, even with ChatGPT's help, but who knows? See you later.